WWDC 2023 is just around the corner and it is shaping up to be an absolute doozy. We are expecting not only the obligatory new versions of all the software for all of Apple's platforms, but also multiple new Macs and the first look at Apple's headset that has been rumoured for years. So let's talk about exactly what we're expecting and why, and what we shouldn't get our hopes up for. It can't be all good news, can it? Also, I'll be live streaming later tonight, so set your reminders and come and get hyped with me. Right then. First, the event is going to go on for a while, apparently clocking in at more than 2 hours due to the sheer weight of awesome that Apple is going to be unleashing on our brains this Monday. That's according to Mark Gurman of Bloomberg, who may well go down as the GOAT in terms of Apple leaks. Now, I'm lucky he's just a writer and not a YouTuber. He's going to be a recurring character in this video too, so be warned. Bear in mind what Apple has announced in just the past few weeks, stuff that basically overflowed from WWDC because it was far too full, including Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro for the iPad, which people have been begging for years. Also, the potentially life-changing personal voice, which in 15 minutes or so of reading will be able to virtualize your voice for future use, so those with medical conditions that affect their speech will be able to continue to communicate verbally. And just yesterday, not quite a year since it was announced, No Man's Sky came to the Mac with an Apple Silicon native version. You can play it on Intel Macs as well, but why would you? Reading between the lines of the announcement tweets, though, there might also be a version ready for Apple's Reality Pro headset too. Now, on the software side of WWDC, we are expecting iOS 17 to bring a handful of new features, including a new landscape lock screen that could show HomeKit controls or just make a pretty great bedside table or nightstand for the Americans. There are also unclear rumours of changes to the Apple Wallet and health apps, and possibly even customization options system-wide for colours and icons, which I think people have been asking for since iPhone. iPadOS 17 will most likely get all of the stuff that iOS 16 got last year, but after the addition of a native weather app last year, can we dream of the day when Apple finds a way to port the elusive calculator app to the big screen? Fingers crossed the M2 chips in the iPad Pros can handle it. tvOS will get, I don't know, something, probably, hopefully. Recently, they have focused on things like HomeKit camera integration and the like, but honestly, I could see them barely mentioning Apple TV OS as a platform. WatchOS is rumoured to get some of the bigger changes with a switch to a more widget-oriented interface in a huge shift to what we've had for the past 8 years on the watch, and possibly a little bit more like glances, which was there a little while ago. macOS 14 has seen very little on the rumour front this year, with barely any talk of new names, so I guess we could do like a Craig Federighi and just make some up. Leave me your guesses for the name of the next macOS down in the comments, and if you're right, I'll reach out and send you a prize of some sort. I'm sure we can find something. And speaking of macOS, a segue. At this point, I'm very much torn. We could get M2, as most of the rumours say, or we could get an M3, which simply looks like an M2 in the testing that Apple and their teams have put it through using third-party apps. Now, it's rare enough for app developers to see the next version of Apple's chips in the developer logs on the iPhone, so I guess hiding it if the core counts are basically the same is fairly trivial for Apple's engineers. If that's the case, however, there's a decent chance that it is actually on the same N4 production node as the A16, which it will borrow the core designs from anyway, and not the 3nm node that we were hoping for, which would have meant the big performance jump we were hoping for. While that would be a bummer, there's also a decent chance that Apple's engineers have managed to resolve the issues they had with the GPUs on the A16, where they had to cancel ray tracing at the last moment. If ray tracing comes to it, that would be pretty cool for a headset, for example. Now, in terms of the Macs that we're actually expecting, the most likely, and by that I mean a lot of people will be very, very shocked if it doesn't arrive, because they've been making it since January, is the MacBook Air 15-inch. This will be the biggest MacBook Air ever, although not the first time that Apple has offered a couple of sizes on the Air. Originally, Apple did a 13.3 and an 11.6-inch variant, which happened to be my very first Mac. Inside, everyone expected the M3, and then everyone expected the M2, and then some insane people thought that it would probably get an M2 Pro in it, but they are insane because you don't just chuck a Pro chip into a fanless body and hope for the best. That would be a bad day at the office, especially when Max Tech gets their hands on one and throws 4 streams of 8K RAW at its transcode and then looks surprised when it melts.
One 100 degrees Celsius. Dang, Apple, what are you doing?
Next up, we've been expecting the Mac Pro for about 18 months. However, based on the latest leaks from the Gurmanator, that's not happening now, but based on the code numbers of Macs that are in testing, he's now suggesting that there could be an update to the Mac Studio that he said wouldn't get an update. M2 Ultra, happy days. Sounds like a pretty good place to start developing for, let's say, a mixed reality headset. And with that Linus sponsor level segue, we're on to what can only be described as the main event. The one more thing, if you will. Although if they try to pretend that this isn't what everyone is there to see after they invited a bunch of VR publications and press, I think we'll all have a little giggle. The headset, which some have dubbed the Reality Pro, will get its first reveal, at least to some degree. And while I'm not convinced that we'll see the final hardware, we might see something in development. Think of it a bit more like a concept car. So there may be some visual changes before we see it for real or in the mixed reality world, but I am certain that it won't be going on sale. And I doubt the Reality Pro name, actually. I think iPod would be amazing, but it does feel a bit like a Craig Federici dad joke. What we do know, however, is actually a little bit more about the components. Even though we've not seen many leaks physically, we know that it's going to have a pair of Sony-built 4K micro OLED displays for your eyes, super high resolution with a peak brightness of 5,000 nits. 5,000. For context, the Pro Display XDR peaks out at 1,600. Just think about that. 5,000 nits is about half the brightness of the brightest sunny day you've ever experienced. Add to that a third display on the outside of the headset, which will show your eyes to the outside world, making it look like you're wearing a pair of ski goggles rather than a full VR headset. 12 or more cameras on the inside and outside of the headset that let you blend the real world with augmented reality, and a 2-hour battery pack that's connected via a cable. And that's to separate the weight from the headset, because it's rumoured that this headset could be as light as 150 grams, potentially more of an aspirational aim for Apple, but reports say that Apple is using carbon fibre as one of the main materials in the chassis, so the weight is clearly a very important goal to them here. The more interesting part, though, is what the headset will actually be for, especially as the software is very difficult to find supply chain leaks for. All we've seen is a couple of ribbon cables, but the interface, the use cases, and what will the killer apps be is what will truly make this different from what is out there already. FaceTime with photorealistic and fully immersive 3D? Perhaps. But we've also heard that No Man's Sky and Beat Saber people will be there, so actually gaming could be a focus for this for one of the first times really for Apple. I mean, regardless, this is going to be a huge leap for Apple. It's what Apple is betting the farm on being the next big thing, so I think it's only polite that we all listen to what Timmy has to say. Let me know what you are most excited about at WWDC and why it's the headset down in the comments. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell.